Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series presented by the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA. The Catalyst webinar series is a bi-weekly educational platform for creating success and change in your club and career. We're very grateful to have the support and the time and the dedication and attention from Ken Mengel. Ken Mengel is the Chief Executive Officer for KM Golf Performance. He is the proprietor of KM Golf Management. They do performance training and physical therapy, focusing on, but not limited to, golf athletic performance training and physical therapy. He is also the brains behind the Mengel method, and we're grateful to have him on the Catalyst this morning. Good morning, Ken. Thanks for being here. How are you? Ken, we can't hear you. Thanks for your patience, everybody. Just sit tight for just a second.
All right, is this better?
Oh, perfect.
There we go. All right, excellent.
All right. So, Ken, we're grateful to have you with us this morning. You have your undergrad degree, I think, in biology from Whittier College.
That is correct.
Your master's degree in physical therapy from SC.
Yep.
Well, good morning. Exactly. You've been a longtime supporter of the section and a great sponsor and partner for several years now, and we're grateful for that and grateful for your time this morning and coming on the Catalyst.
I look forward to it. It's a great opportunity. My interactions with the SCPGA, I started back in 2015, so we've got a good long history, and I look forward to many years to come and continuing to grow that relationship. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. So take it away.
All right. Well, our talk today is on the dynamic warm-up. Is your warm-up dynamic, and are you prepared to recover? So how are we getting our bodies, getting our players, getting ourselves ready to perform, and how do we get ourselves ready to recover so that we can perform again and again? There we go. So what is a dynamic warm-up? A lot of talk in the athletic world of, do I stretch before I exercise? How do I warm up? What do I do to get ready? Well, according to the introduction to dynamic warm-ups, you're looking at a preparatory motion, right? So we're looking at golf as a dynamic activity. We're looking at the explosiveness. We're looking at the range of motions needed. We're looking at the muscle activation patterns that are necessary. And a dynamic warm-up is designed to prepare our body to move in those planes, to move in those ranges, and to move with speed and explosiveness. So it's got to encompass all of those pieces. So an introduction to dynamic warm-ups basically says preparatory motions and activities that are associated with the desired performance. So a golf warm-up would be different from a baseball warm-up, would be different from a swimming warm-up. We're watching the Olympics now. We've got all kinds of events. So how would a fencer warm up versus a swimmer warm up? They're all going to be specific to the actions that are required in the environment that you're working in. They progress in intensity from a low intensity start to a higher intensity finish to allow our body to accommodate. So for instance, you wake up first thing in the morning, you stand up on one foot and you try and balance right out of bed. Our balance is not going to be the best. If you repeat that 3, 4, 5 times, by that second, third, fourth, fifth time, our balance is going to get better, 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 because we're kind of learning what is necessary each time we do it to do it better. And the key here is a dynamic warm-up should not be fatiguing. You should feel like you've worked. You shouldn't feel like you've been fatigued. So what a dynamic warm-up is not, it is not static stretching. So we're all familiar with a hamstring stretch, or bend over, touch your toes, or stretch the arm across the body like a pitcher's stretch. Those are all fantastic stretches, stretching our calves, things like that. I encourage people to stretch often, on a daily basis if possible, but there's a time and place, and a dynamic warm-up is not static stretching. So our goals are totally different. Our goal in a static stretch is to increase flexibility of a tissue, to improve the range of motion of a joint. And this is where range of motion of a joint and mobility are totally different things. They're related but different. Range of motion is, can I move you through a particular range of motion? Say your shoulder overhead. Can I move you to a certain degree of range of motion. 180 degrees would be our textbook normal. Now, how far can you move you actively? That's mobility. You moving you actively is mobility. Me moving you is range of motion. Gaining new range of motion before an athletic activity means that I now have range of motion that I haven't used, I'm not familiar with, I don't have coordination and control of. I may actually see a deficit in my performance, which research has definitely showed. Static stretching does not enhance athletic performance if done before the activity. It's a great tool in terms of our recovery and a great tool in the after. So we want to take a look at that and make sure that, are we having people do activities that are going to enhance their performance, or are we having people do activities that are going to, at best, be a net neutral in their performance?
So Ken, a quick question.
Yeah.
Static stretching is not effective or possibly detrimental to pre-performance stretching. Why does so many teams and so many sports do it routinely?
Well, I think if you watch, like if you go to a baseball stadium is a great place to kind of see, you see them in their warm-ups and things like that. There is a progression that they go through. So they'll do a lot of their static stretching followed by dynamic activities. So they'll stretch their hamstrings. They'll do paired stretches with other teammates and such in the outfield. And then they're up and they're doing high steps, or they're doing butt kickers, or they're doing karaoke type activities to now take that range of motion and engage it actively. So the order that you do it in, static stretching on its own is not a great way to start things off, or it wouldn't be your finishing piece. I wouldn't stretch and then go hit golf balls. But if I stretched and then I did a dynamic warm-up on top of the stretch and then I hit balls, then I'm going to be setting myself up for the best motion. So order will matter. When you see guys that are static stretching, order is going to matter. And that's that progression too, from that low intensity towards a higher intensity, more athletic as I go farther into my warm-up.
Thanks, Ken.
So kind of the whys behind a dynamic warm-up. What's the science say on dynamic warm-up? Well, active motion increases blood flow to the tissues, increases blood flow to the nervous system. That's probably as important as anything. That blood flow to the nervous system is where we're going to get part of our motor control. It's going to be our motor programming and planning. It's that heightening effect of waking the brain up. And I always say you're basically putting your brain in tune with what your body needs to do. And that comes into play when you're looking at coordinated motions. You're looking at sequence. We're all big on what the sequence is. I'm big on the gym side on sequencing people appropriately. We're big on the course on what is our swing looking like? Where are we sequencing from? Are we grounding up, or are we top down? So increasing blood flow increases core temperature. Now, increasing core temperature will also increase elasticity of the tissues. So my mobility factor can be enhanced with a dynamic warm-up because I've increased blood flow. Therefore, I've increased core temperature of the tissue. And now my elasticity of those tissues is greater, allowing me to actively move through greater ranges of motion. So I do have some quote unquote stretch capability here, but it's active. Enhanced metabolic reactions. Again, I wake things up. You want your body's energy systems awake. When we're looking at golf and we look at what energy systems are in high demand, it's not a high cardiovascular demand activity because we're not active for 30 minutes at a time, or even on the course, 4 hours, 5 hours at a time. There are downtimes. So it's not the continual activity of a cardio piece. It's an intermittent activity of explosiveness, followed by some walking, followed by a couple seconds or a minute or two of standing, followed by explosiveness again. And it's that repeat. So we want to do a warm-up that's going to be similar to what the body's going to need on the energy system side of things. And that's where the dynamic warm-up starts to wake up that metabolic reaction. Again, we said it improves mobility and it boosts athletic performance. This is shown in research that dynamic warm-ups that are geared towards the movements you're looking at in your athletic performance will increase the athleticism. And basically, athleticism is the expression, skilled expression of strength, speed, power, balance, endurance, other factors. But those are our keys. If I wake things up and I am more ready to move appropriately, my actions on the course are going to be better. So again, how do I boost athletic performance? Well, increase blood flow. By increasing blood flow, I increase oxygen delivery to the musculature. There's our fuel. That is what is going to drive us. So the fuel for our body is what we call ATP, adenosine triphosphate. That's built within the tissues. That's built in the cells. That's a component that we take glucose, or we take a sugar molecule, we can take a fat molecule, and it runs through a system. It is most efficient in producing energy when oxygen is present. So oxygenated tissues are going to produce more energy, the capability to produce more energy than those tissues that are in an oxygen-deprived environment. It increases speed of nerve impulse transmission and coordination. This is important because if I get better nerve conduction, if I get better firing patterns from my brain, which is our programming center, out through the spinal cord into my peripheral nervous system and to the musculature, and I fire the muscles with better coordination. And this goes not only in from my chest to my deltoids to my biceps and triceps to my forearms, but it's within my pectoral muscles. It's within my deltoid muscles. It's within my rotator cuff. The fibers, thousands of muscle fibers within those individual muscles are also coordinated within the muscle. That coordination on kind of the micro scale then goes to the macro scale. It says from muscle to muscle to muscle. So a dynamic warm-up improves that micro so that we can improve the macro. And if we improve that, we get increased force development and increased speed of force development, right? So I'm not just producing big force, but I'm able to produce force on demand quickly. There's our explosiveness. There's our power and speed component. It maximizes force and strength and power development, and my risk for injury has been shown to be reduced with the performance of a dynamic warm-up. So again, so much of what we see in athletic injury has a relationship to the neurologic system. One misstep, one poorly coordinated move is enough to put us in a jeopardy position. If I am warmed up, if I have felt the ground, if I have felt my body movement, if I've got those pieces integrated, my risk for injury is greatly reduced. So when to do a dynamic warm-up? Timing is important. Doing your warm-up at home, driving to the course, hopping out of the car, getting your shoes on, taking your bag to the range, hitting some balls right there. Too much time has elapsed between the warm-up and the event. You're looking at a warm-up effectiveness period of about 10 to 15 minutes before the actual athletic activity. So I tell my players, I set up a dynamic warm-up with each one of the players that I screen. That's their first follow-up session with me, is we go through 3 rounds of a dynamic warm-up based on what I found in their screening and things that I think will improve their readiness to swing a golf club. They should be getting to the range for practice, for a lesson, for an event, about 15 minutes before they normally would. So, and I also ask them, what is their routine? Are they chip and putt first, and then they go to the range? Are they hit on the range first and then go chip and putt? If they're a chip and putt first, I have them chip and putt first. And then before full swing is when I ask them to do their dynamic warm-up, because that's where the high demand is at. I want that dynamic warm-up done within 10 to 15 minutes of their first full swing of a golf club. If they're a driving range full swing first and a chip and putt second, I'd have them do their warm-up before they hit balls at the range. Then they'll go over, they'll chip and they'll putt. And then I have them do kind of a 2 to 3 exercise refresh, if you will, of their dynamic warm-up before they hit the first tee box, so that they've woken that nervous system back up between that downtime of the last full swing and their short game practice. If you wait longer than 10 to 15 minutes, again, those effects wane. So we want to be on top of it. If you have a slow round where you've got the par 3 backups that happen, and you've got 2 groups on the tee box ahead of you, and you're going to be waiting for a little bit, again, that 2 to 3 exercise refresher of waking up the nervous system before you hit your next shot is a really good tool to have in your box. So it's up to us in so many ways to be the example, right? It's up to us to have an expectation. All of my clients, when they come into the studio and we're gonna take them through their exercise program for the day, whether it's a one-on-one or a small group session, they go through a dynamic warm-up. My gym dynamic warm-up is different from my on-course dynamic warm-up that I've showed them. So they all know when they walk in, they all know their dynamic warm-up for the gym. And they come in, they put their things in their cubby space, they hop over to the side of the gym that's got open floor space, and they begin their dynamic warm-up on their own. And they take themselves through. And again, it's about a 7 to 10 minute dynamic warm-up in the gym. Are we doing the same thing? When I take myself through my own exercise program in the gym, am I hopping right on the weight machine? Am I hopping right into squats? Am I hopping right into leg press or whatever else it is I might be doing? Or am I taking myself through a dynamic warm-up, one, because it's the right thing to do for me, and two, because it sets the example for those that are around me. And I want to make sure that they see that we're practicing what we preach. So my question you can answer it internally, I guess you can say, do you perform a specific dynamic warm-up before you practice or play? And if not, why not? And if time is one of the reasons, then we need to figure out what we can do to put together a dynamic warm-up that's a reasonable amount of time, and kind of create a compromise of, you're going to give up 5 minutes of your practice to add a 5-minute dynamic warm-up into your program. And I will almost guarantee you that you will feel a difference if you perform it versus if you don't. The 5 minutes you're going to take to warm your body up swinging the golf club versus the 5 minutes you're going to take to perform a dynamic warm-up, I almost guarantee you the results are going to feel different to you. Therefore, do you ensure that your students are performing their dynamic warm-up before each session with you? I'll guarantee you, if they've come to me, they have a dynamic warm-up by their second session. So the first session is their screening. Their second session is their dynamic warm-up. And I teach them through, we go through it 3 times, the entire dynamic warm-up. They have a video on their phone that I've sent them through Google Drive in their own exercise folder that is labeled as their dynamic warm-up. So there's no excuse for them not to have their dynamic warm-up in hand and ready to go. And they should be showing up to you 10 to 15 minutes earlier than they would normally. I'm not asking for you guys to give up your teaching time. What I'm asking for the students is get there early. Therefore, they're ready for you at that time that they're scheduled with you. So we want to make it an expectation. We want to be 10 to 15 minutes ahead of time. Again, I was kind of raised with my dad, who was a firm believer, as am I, that if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, you're fired. We want to set that expectation, I think, with our students, is on the rare occasion where they're late, they still need to take themselves through the dynamic warm-up. It's not a skip because they're late. This is an important, I say it's an essential component to athletic performance, and it should be essential for us as the professionals that are teaching and training them to be that example. So assess, don't guess. This is one of my favorite lines, kind of my credo for how I practice. It's my credo for the physical therapy side of things. It's my credo for the training side of things. What does an athlete need for golf? What does the sport demand? We all can take a look and we can analyze movement in different ways. We look at things through different lenses. You know, the way that you see a golfer swing a club and what you're looking at is different than when I see them move in a golf swing. When I watch a video, when I see them live, I'm seeing it through my physical therapy and performance eyes. I'm not seeing it, believe me, as a teaching tool. I'm the before in the video. I am not the after in the golf swing video. So when it comes to that, my lens that I look at is, do they have adequate range of motion, mobility through the joints that should be mobile? Do they have adequate stability where they need the stability? Do they create adequate ground force? Are they able to maintain their postures? Do they have horrible posture to begin with? Is that something we need to look at correcting? All of those factors create the movement patterns that we're going to see. And that's going to be what determines their ability to do what you want them to do. So what are the demands that the sport of golf has pertaining to nearly all athletes? Well, it requires a certain amount of ankle motion. It requires a certain amount of hip rotation on both sides. It requires a certain amount of thoracic spine rotation. Definitely demands core stability, linking our hip and pelvis to our thoracic spine. That lumbar spine should be relatively stable, but that's our transfer center, right? That's where things either get lost and we leak energy, or that's where things, as you see that progression, you see that the teenager who's got an extreme amount of flexibility and they can get into positions they can't get out of, as they get that awareness of their body and awaken their core, all of a sudden we see things start to click in the gym and on the course. And then, so what does an athlete need for golf? Fantastic. What does each athlete need? Because that's going to be unique, as we all know. we talked last year about the senior golf athlete, and what does the senior golf athlete need versus what the junior golf athlete needs? I know I'm now 55 years old, and my body demands in terms of mobility are far greater to me than what they were when I was in my 20s and 30s and even in my 40s. So my exercise programming for myself, and therefore my dynamic warm-up, has shifted to be more mobility focused, to be more, how can I get into ranges well? Because my body will compensate. I'm a big believer that our bodies do one thing extremely well, and we do it without thinking, and that's compensate. Our bodies, basically our brain is served by our hands. And because we grip a golf club, our brain says, get my club into a certain position, get my hands into a certain position. It's not really even worried about the device that's in it. It's telling my hands to get to a place. Well, my hands will get there no matter how they get there, whether it's in a good sequence, a good movement pattern, or whether it's creating compensation to get them into the position that my brain goes, hey, that's where my hands should be. Well, my hands are there, but my body's all over the place. How do I create that? Is I need to be individually assessed. I need to be individually looked at to put together a program that's going to meet my individual needs. Because my needs are going to be very different than a 15-year-old girl who's got more flexibility than she can handle, but doesn't have the strength and the control to create mobility. This is where I encourage, again, it's kind of been the horn I've been sounding is build your team. Find a therapist that's out there that knows what they're doing, is relatable to the golf industry. Find a trainer that knows what they're doing, that can talk the talk with golf, that can talk with you about what you're seeing, as well as talk to you about what they're seeing, so that you can put those pieces together to build that team for the golfer. So the anatomy of a dynamic warm-up. First and foremost, it should encompass all of the demands that you're going to face when you're out on the golf course. Whether you're on the course or on the range, it should have all of those components. So it needs to have elements of mobility. And again, that's range of motion that I'm taking myself through and controlling. Stability is related to mobility, because if I can't control my one joint, if I can't control my foot and ankle, how am I going to control my hip? Stability through my feet allows mobility through my hips. Stability into my core allows mobility in my thoracic spine, and so on. It's these leapfrogs of motion and stability. I need to have balance. I need to be able to create ground reaction force, right? If I'm going to create any type of speed or power, I better be able to use the ground well. I need speed and power, and I need mental focus. One of the things I really like about a dynamic warm-up is it becomes a part of that player's process. It becomes an expectation that their body and their mind have, that when they arrive to the course, whether it's for practice, for lesson, or for play, that this is step one. They're now starting to dial in to an increasing level of attention that's going to be necessary when they get out on the golf course. And this dynamic warm-up can be step one in bringing that mental focus into play. So I put together kind of a good generalized dynamic warm-up for what most people are going to need. It's not all encompassing in terms of, if I've got a junior that has different mobility needs, I'm going to tweak it, obviously. If I've got a senior or a super senior that's got other needs, I'm going to tweak it. But I'm going to kind of show you where we're starting here. And again, kind of simple towards complex. Simple is a squat. Almost everybody can squat. 99 and 9/10 of us can squat, because we can all sit. If you can sit to stand, you can squat. Now, in this position here, I'm going to use a golf club right across my chest. And as I sit into my heels, I tell people, I want you to push your caboose back towards the wall behind you, or sit as if there's a chair that's too far behind you to reach. You're going to try and sit in it anyways. Drive actively, push your arms out in front of you, get back into your heels. And once you get into that squat with straight arms, raise that club way up over your head. You're not only reaching up and back, but you're reaching towards the sky. You're pressing. What that's going to do is that's going to activate you through the floor. It's our first step of getting us to use the ground reactions. So we're using our feet through the floor. We've got range of motion through our ankles. We've got range of motion and mobility through our knees and our hips. We've got postural components that are keeping our trunk in a relatively upright position, or at least a flat back position, right? You don't have to be vertical. You can be in a tilt position, in a pelvic tilt position. That hinge at the hip is a normal athletic position. You just want to keep the back in a neutral spine. And then getting through the shoulder girdle, activating that posterior chain. So it's all about hyperactivating that postural chain. From there, we start to add a little more of a dynamic component to it. Again, not overly complex, but just starting to be complex enough because we're putting in triplane motion. We're asking ourselves, step back into a lunge, push that golf club out in front of you, and rotate to that forward leg side. I'm asking my foot to own the floor. I'm asking the ball of the big toe to stay in contact. And if I get the ball of the big toe, I get my glute. So on this image here, it's my left side glute that I'm looking to activate by owning the left foot through the floor, while creating separation of my trunk versus my pelvis and my trunk versus my head. I have people keep their eyes focused straight ahead. From that position, the goal is ultimately to, in one move, come up to single leg stance, and I'm going to rotate now to the leg that's in front of me. Balance is our key here. If I have to touch down and give myself a little bit of a balance correction as I come up for the first couple repetitions, no problem. Kind of warming things up. By about the 8th, 9th, 10th repetition, I'm hopefully going through this in a very fluid motion. One of my favorite stretches. This is the one stretches. I should warm up exercises. Here we go. I misspeak. One of my favorite warm ups. This is my par 3 backup go-to. It might be a squat with an overhead reach and this archer exercise. I love the fact that this archer exercise creates so much separation. There's so many components going on with balance. What I have in this setup is kind of a stride stand, but I have 95 to almost 100% of my weight on my lead foot. Kind of notice how far my chest is out over my foot. If I had a necktie on, the necktie plumb line would drop in front of my toes, not even on my foot. That lead leg is doing all the work. As I pull that hand back to my chest on that same lead leg side, I'm inhaling. And then as I reach back, kind of picturing like Stretch Armstrong, I'm trying to reach back to the back wall as I reach forward to the front wall, creating that separation. And if I pull those two parts, I get rotation. So I'm getting big separation turn of my thoracic spine. And again, separation through the head, neck, and shoulders. And then I'm back to the starting position again. And about 8 or 10 of those, I've got the foot working through the floor. I've got the glute working. I've got my core working to stabilize my lumbar spine to allow thoracic spine rotation. I have my shoulder girdle working. I have balance components throughout. Now we get a little more complex. So it's more than just standing on one leg here. I'm actually going to put myself into what we call an RDL, a Romanian deadlift kind of a position, which is that leg push back out. So this is a single leg RDL. And as I go into that position, I put my arms out. I stretch out away from my side with my thumbs up to the ceiling. That's to activate my postural muscles through my shoulder girdle and my rotator cuff. So I'm looking again, balance from the foot up through the knee and the hip, stability through the core to keep that nice flat plane of my back, and then working through the shoulder girdle to activate rotator cuff and scapular stabilizers for postural maintenance in my swing activities. Mini bands, there's no reason mini bands shouldn't be a part of every golfer's bag. They are a fantastic activation tool. So like I said, when you've got that break of 2 groups ahead of you on a par 3 and you're waiting, the archer is a great one. Break out a mini band and do a little work in activating through the lower extremities. So the lower extremities, I'm going to have a little heavier band than I am through the upper extremities. The upper extremities, I'm just pulling my arms apart to set my shoulder blades in place. I'm not looking at a maximal stretch on the band. What I'm doing here is if you notice, I'm on my right side and rotating to that right side. I want to get my right hip, my right foot hyper activated together as I rotate to that side, as I work on loading that side. Now I'm going to do this to both sides. So I step away with the left foot, but I step away and I don't shift away. I'm keeping my weight loaded on that right side as I reach back into the rotation on that side. Step back, come back to the starting position, and again, step away, rotate away, step back, come back. I'm going to do that both on the right and the left sides. Wake up that ground reaction force. Wake up that foot owning the ground first. If my foot and my ankle don't own the ground first, I have to compensate the rest of the way up the chain no matter what. I want to minimize that compensation by getting that foot owning the ground. If I get the foot owning the ground, I get my hip and my glutes. If I get my hip and my glutes, I get my core. If I get my core, my abdominal core, I get my scapulothoracic area. I get the upper back stabilizers. If I get that, I get my head and neck stabilizers. So I'm stacking my blocks in a way that allows me a best opportunity to maintain my posture and work my mobility in a good pattern here. And then finally, we're looking at speed skaters. So we're going to do a lateral hop. I always say it's kind of a 1, 2, 3. It's right foot to left foot back to right foot to both feet, and I'm going to jump as high as I can. Here, what I want to see is I want to see quickness from right to left, from left to right, and then from right back to the double. And when I hit the ground, I don't linger. When you drop a rubber ball on the floor and it bounces back up, it doesn't sit on the floor before it jumps back up. It hits the floor and it gets back up. This is about creating maximum speed and getting as much vertical from that speed as I can get. Now, I can jump higher if I linger a little bit and set myself and really throw myself up into the air. But I'm looking at ground reaction force that's going to have a speed-based component. I want to change directions quickly, and I want to get up in the air quickly. And this is my most, dynamic exercise that I've done, and it's my most neurologically challenging exercise that I've done. Therefore, this is the last piece of my dynamic exercise, my dynamic warm-up. Doesn't start with it, I finish with it, because now I'm going to take all the mobility work that I worked on for the first 5 exercises, couple that with the speed and power work I just did here and force creation through the ground. Now swing a club, because now I'm ready. So dynamic warm-up and mental focus, again, we talked about this. We want it to become a part of the golfer's process, setting the stage for their physical and performance, which is going to come because mentally they're already more set. It's got to be performed with intention. It's like any other part of their practice. If they're going through the motions, they are not getting the physical benefits, and they are definitely not getting the mental benefits. So it's not a run up and quickly get through their dynamic warm up. It's a come up, set the bag down, and be intentional with each of the exercises that are being done so that their performance can be the best it can be mentally and physically. One of my favorite sayings is train with intention. Study with intention. Whatever you do, do it with the right intention. But here we're training with intention because I know you guys are teaching with intention, and we want our athletes intentionally ready. So we take time to do our dynamic warm-up, but do we prepare to recover? In my opinion, and I think the research is bearing this out in terms of the amount of research being done on recovery science, recovery is really the next frontier of sports performance. When you are playing in tournaments, say you're playing in the section championship, we have 3 days, potentially 3 days of play. Is your performance on day 2 or day 3, or when you get to that PGA level, the championship there, is it on day 4 what it was on day 1 or day 2? Is there a decline? Is there an improvement? So how do you tilt the balance in your favor? How do you also, I've got some examples on my own side here, keep your spouse or your partner happy by not being too sore the days after you play? How do you not fracture, dislocate a shoulder playing slow pitch softball when you're in your early 30s thinking you were 18? At the same week, you're going to be moving your entire home from one location to another, and that doesn't go well with your wife. And I'm not saying that a dynamic warm-up would have necessarily saved me, smarter base running would have saved me, but if you're sore and achy every time the day after you play, can we change that? What are we doing to recover better? So there are different modalities of recovery. There are different tools. There are some essentials. And again, I'm going to talk about a couple tools very shortly, show you a couple of the things that are out there. And you're going to also have the opportunity come the section championship this year. I'll tell you a little bit more about that at the very end, but we're going to have our golf performance zone set up at the section championship. It's going to be a really fantastic setup. We've been working with Nikki, and it's been just a blast to kind of put this together, and kind of one of those visions that I've had for a long time that's fun to start to really see come true. So modalities of recovery, massage therapy. I don't know if anybody watched I think it's called Unchained, the Tour de France documentary that's on Netflix, kind of like The Full Swing. But they, after every leg of the journey, part of what they show are these guys getting massage therapy. Massage therapy is shown to be a very, very effective tool in promoting recovery and enhancing people's recovery and their ability to return to a high level of performance the next day. So whether it's manual massage therapy, you have a massage therapist that you work with, whether it's an impact gun, a massage gun, a hypervolt, a Theragun, things of that nature, foam rollers, massage balls, other tools. They've got like the tiger tails that are like a rolling pin with the handles. All of these are fantastic tools to utilize for recovery. Compression devices. There are pneumatic sleeves, air pressure sleeves that they've got for arms and legs, especially for legs is where we find the biggest piece of recovery because it helps the return of blood flow and lymphatic fluids to the greatest level. There's electrical stimulation, getting some light nerve activation that gets a muscle contraction that also is a huge promoter of blood flow return, lymphatic return, as well as giving a lot of feedback on the neurologic side of things. Low intensity activities, especially cardio. This is where our cardio really comes in on golf, is a form of recovery. Getting on a stationary bike and getting a nice ride out for 15 or 20 minutes. Doing an easy walk on a treadmill or on an elliptical device. We want to minimize impact. Some swimming, some aquatic therapy type exercises, things of that nature are all great. And here's where our static stretching goes, right here in recovery. So stretching our calves, stretching our hamstrings, stretching our upper back and our shoulders. Again, this may be individual to each person. Somebody may be able to bend over and touch their toes, put their hands flat on the floor. Do they need to stretch their hamstrings? It wouldn't be wrong, but it's not essential. What if they lack ankle range of motion because they've got a long history of multiple ankle sprains? Do we know that about our clients? Is this the type of thing that we can maybe look at as part of why they're not able to get into the right positions, but also why after walking a round of golf on a particularly hilly course, they may have some restriction through their calves that could limit them the next day in getting into their ankles. So again, some of the tools, foam rollers and yoga blocks and things like that you can position on and let yourself fall off of the edges of to just kind of let gravity help us. The foam rollers for obviously moving through the tissues. I look at foam rollers as more a way of getting blood flow through the tissues than it really is of loosening tissue up. You have to be very specific in how you utilize a foam roller in terms of really getting after tissue and creating mobility between the tissues. But in terms of enhancing blood flow and getting fluid flow, this is a fantastic tool. Your massage guns are also great tools. A lot of us may have those already, or even like they have the palm-sized ones. Anything you can do on that level is fantastic. Up on the upper left here, the gal reading the book with her Normatec leg sleeves on. These are the pneumatic devices. These are circumferential, so they encompass the whole leg, foot, and ankle. They are compressive in nature with air pressure. They typically are oscillatory, so they're going to vary in terms of compressive and a release and a compressive and a release. Similar in nature to what our muscular contractions in our legs do. Our muscle contractions are a part of what stimulate that blood flow back up the chain from our feet back up into our core and back up into our heart. Same thing with the lymphatics. If you have issues with when you travel and you get off of an airplane, you notice that your feet and your ankles are a little bit puffy. That's not so much a blood flow issue as that's a lymphatic issue. And these compressive devices can be really great for that. The image over here of Kittle with the device on his leg, that's called a Firefly. You look at it, it's like the little strap below his knee. That little white part of the strap is set right above the peroneal nerve, and it's an electrical stimulator. And it stimulates that peroneal nerve to create a muscular contraction in the lower leg that gets a little bit of a twitch going through the ankle and the foot, moves those muscles, increases blood flow. This is a kind of a secondary use of this technology because the primary use of this technology, and there's actually a different device from this, but very similar to this, that's used for prevention and treatment of deep vein thromboses, DVTs, like post-op total knee replacements, post-op total hip replacements. They're starting to utilize these in the hospital setting as well as in the home setting. And they're showing that the reduction in DVT issues has been fantastic. The increase in rate of wound healing, not only at the knee, but for diabetic wounds and ulcers in the feet and the lower legs has been tremendous. So now they've taken it to a recovery side and said, what about recovery? And it's really a very cool device. And we're hoping to have some of those available as well at the recovery zone, the performance zone at the section championship. And then down below, you have good old-fashioned massage therapy, which, again, never is a bad thing to have in a post-round type of an activity. You can have obviously different body areas work. When you're looking at bang for your buck, the legs are our bang for our buck because you're looking at the most muscle mass in the body. So when do you recover? As is the case with the dynamic warm-up, your timing is key. The sooner after competition, the sooner after completion of the activity, the sooner after leaving the gym, the better. If you're 30, 40 minutes later, an hour later, 2 hours later, it's still worth doing. It's still better than not doing it. But if you can get to it quickly, even better. How long should it take? Again, that's a part of what the research is still looking at. But if we're going to perform 4 to 5 hours, or with our warm-up times and range time and things like that before a round of golf, if we're going to perform 5 to 6 hours, depending on the tournament, you're going to need more than 5 minutes to recover. A couple toe touches, a little bit of movement through the ankles, a couple shoulder wiggles, not enough. Take time to recover. Nutrition and recovery. Here's a key component. And I would say if you don't have time to recover before you hop in the car and have to drive home or back to work or wherever it is you're going right after your round, this is something we can all do in the car as we're doing that is hydrate. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Number one key to recovery is hydration. If our fluid levels are off, if our electrolytes are off, we are going to have issues in recovery. Carbohydrate replacement. We just burn through a ton of glucose, a ton of sugar to fuel our system to play a round of golf or to practice for an hour or 2 or 3. We need carbohydrate replacement. So we need energy for immediate, and we need to put glucose back in the form of glycogen into our muscles. Our muscles store this glycogen. If we've depleted it and we don't replenish it, the next day's performance is likely to suffer. So carbohydrate replacement, and that's not to say sugar, although if you had a Snickers bar at the end of a round, it's not the worst thing in the world, but that's to eat good starches, pastas, rices, potatoes, complex carbs in those ways are really, really good. Protein intake is important for tissue repair. So every time we exercise, part of our goal, especially in the gym setting, is to break tissue down a little bit. Because to break tissue down a little bit stimulates the body to go in and regenerate a little stronger than it was. Because if I continually break things down, the brain recognizes, hey, this guy is doing this to me over and over again. What if I build it stronger? That's how we build muscle mass. That's how we build tissue resilience. But we need protein to make those repairs. Don't fool yourself that 4 or 5 hours out on the golf course, you're not breaking down some protein. You're not breaking down some muscle fibers. We need to repair that. So getting good protein into the system is essential. And then good fats. Good fats, your avocados, your coconut, your olive oils, your fish, your clean grass-fed beefs, things like that. Good fats help to mediate inflammatory effects. We are going to have inflammation if we exercise. We are going to have inflammation if we perform intensive activities at a high level. Good fats help to mediate that inflammatory effect along with hydration. This is where having a good nutrition specialist is also a part of building our team. So if we're looking at having a well-rounded team, we're looking at multiple components to really setting ourselves up and our clients up for the best effect. So dynamic warm-up and preparation to recover. Build your team. Surround yourself with experts. You, the professional, physical therapist and performance specialist, trainer right there with them. Sports psych and mental, nutrition. These are all keys in building our teams, and we should have resources and access. And that's kind of one of my goals is I want to be one of those resources where you can reach out and say, who do you know in my area that I can refer to? Those are all pieces that we want to build, and we want to grow those together. So what makes an expert? Dr. Sandra Stuckey, who is a professor at Western University of Health Sciences in the physical therapy department, in her research pursuing her educational doctorate, came to learn that one of the key attributes shared by experts in multiple fields is their ability to say, I don't know. kind of shocking that you'd think that the expert is the one that knows, but the expert is also the one that knows what they don't. And that ability to not know, but seek out the reference, the resource, the knowledge of, or the other specialist who can help you is really our key. So I know you guys are specialists in your area. I'm a specialist in my area. I'm not going to teach the golf swing, but I'm going to ask that you guys seek out a professional to help teach a good dynamic warm-up and good recovery protocol. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you guys today. I really, I enjoy these times. I look forward to answering any questions you might have to the best that I can. You might get an I don't know, and that's not to prove anything, but it'll just be an honest I don't know. And I'm always glad to try and find out the answers and get back in touch with you guys. So thank you very much, and I wish you all the best today.
Thank you so much, Ken. Appreciate your time and sharing your expertise with the section. I've had a question for you here. What is your favorite dynamic warm-up routine?
My favorite dynamic warm-up routine. Mine is, I showed you what I do. You'll notice there's a lot of mobility work in there, a lot of that rotation separation piece. I've got some arthritic findings in my thoracic spine that really are significant to me. So I spend a lot of time in the lunge with rotation, and I spend a lot of time in the archer. That's my archer. I'm probably doing 4 or 5 times on the golf course. So it's a part of my initial routine before I hit my hit balls at the range to warm up. And I'm probably doing it again about the 4th or the 5th hole. And I'm probably doing it again at the turn. And I'm probably doing it again one more time on the back 9. Between the archer and the banded exercise, those are my 2 favorite warm-up exercises. And I have those are 2 of the exercises that I would say I have almost all of my clients doing as a part of their warm-up program. I really value those simply because of the amount of on the archer, the amount of ground interaction that you get, the balance challenge that comes from the stability of the foot. The ground up piece on that is so valuable. I think that when you perform it and you feel it, you really kind of go, oh, yeah, I get why that one's an important one. And the same thing with that banded exercise, really owning the ground first, really feeling myself loading through that hip and keeping control through there. But again, creating that separation, creating that width. And for me, and how my body feels, that width component is so important. And I think translates across golfers that, whether it's amount of rotation or width, we're looking at how do we create the longest travel of a second hand on the clock, right? To create that speed pattern. And that's one of those ways to do that.
So Ken, changing gears a little bit, for the good of the attendees today, can you talk a little bit about your operation? I know you're based out of Arcadia, but the way
Absolutely.
your office works, how big your team is. Can you tell us about your operation?
You bet. So my primary location is in Arcadia. I'm here on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And I do Tuesdays and Thursdays. My typical day is start at 6 in the morning, and I'll be leaving at 6 or 7 o'clock at night. So I kind of have the long days on the 2 days. Fridays will vary. I'll start at 6 in the morning, typically on Fridays. And depending on time of year, I'll be here until 1 o'clock in the afternoon in summer times. A lot of people are out of town on the summers, as I'm sure you guys all find as well. But in the school year, I'll be here until 6 o'clock at night on Fridays as well, and just kind of swell my schedule that way. I do train 1 day a week. I have a home studio, about a 400 square foot area in my home studio in Los Alamitos. So if there are any North Orange County or Long Beach area people, that's an option as well. I'm a team of 1, so it's myself with the training and really making a move this year in towards the education side of things at the highest level that I can. So putting together some continuing education courses that are going to be hopefully coming up in September that I'll absolutely be letting you guys know about. And all of them are built on a team strategy. It's myself, it's sports psych, it's nutrition, it's motor learning specialists, it's kinesiologists that are ground reaction force specialists, and it's golf professionals, and kind of building a team of 5, 6, 7 of us to come together and say, here's how our specialties are all individual. Here's how our specialties are all interrelated and internecessary. And here's how we're going to be able to bring that out to market to really show what building a team, what value that can be to the golfer, to our client ultimately.
Fantastic. Well, there's no questions from the field. Once again, on behalf of the Education Committee for the Southern California section of the PGA, we'd like to thank Ken Mengel for coming on and presenting and sharing his expertise today. For all the PGA members that are on this morning's Catalyst, you will get one MSR credit, PDR credit for attending this morning's webinar. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, everybody.
You bet, John. And I encourage everybody at the section championship, come find us. We're going to have a couple of at least 2, if not 3 tents up. We're going to have at least 2, if not 3 therapists there who are all TPI certified and strength and conditioning specialists who we're, if you've noticed I don't know if you've noticed on the SCPGA webpage, but there's now the golf performance portion on that website. And that's what we're looking to build with you guys, is really build that relationship that, is that team. And I thank you guys.
Thank you, Ken. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you, John.